This week, the Pope visits Armenia. World Youth Day is less than a month away, and we check in on the Eastern churches. Hello and welcome to this edition of Vatican Connections. There's a lot going on, so let's get started. Just in time for the one-year anniversary of the release of Laudato Si, the Vatican has launched a special website with all kinds of resources for Catholics who want to explore the encyclical in depth and find inspiration on how to take care of our common home. The site features papers and presentations given by different experts at a Vatican-organized conference and links to documents released by the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace. Check it out for yourself. Visit laudatosi.va. The 65th anniversary of Pope Benedict XVI's ordination to the priesthood is coming up June 29th. That's a holiday at the Vatican, so there will be a ceremony commemorating his ordination at the Vatican on June 28th. Reports indicate that Pope Francis will be there with the Pope Emeritus to mark the date. Now, it's also the 65th anniversary of the ordination of the retired Pope's brother, Monsignor Georg Ratzinger. Both Ratzinger brothers had their formation interrupted by the Second World War and actually ended up being ordained together. Now, coinciding with this anniversary is the release of a book called Priesthood. It is a collection of the Pope Emeritus's messages and homilies to priests, and the foreword to the book was written by none other than Pope Francis. Now, turning to the Orthodox Church. The Pan-Orthodox Synod is underway in Crete, even though 4 patriarchs decided not to attend. In fact, the 10 patriarchs in attendance have unanimously agreed on a declaration about one of the items on their agenda. They have adopted a declaration on the mission of the Orthodox Church in the modern world. Now, why is this declaration important? Well, simply, it's the very first time that the Orthodox Church has addressed modern-day issues united as a group. Turning to the Vatican, Pope Francis has been busy sending video messages to various groups. Early in the week, he sent a message to participants at an anti-death penalty conference taking place in Oslo, Norway. He lauded them for their work against the death penalty, reiterated that in today's world, the death penalty is unconscionable, and urged them to also work towards improving conditions in prison to better respect the dignity of incarcerated people. Now, later in the week, the Pope sent a video message to the people of Armenia in advance of his visit to that country. He said the history of the Armenian people and the things that happened to them evoke admiration and pain in him. Admiration because as a people, they found strength in the cross of Christ to get up and start again, and pain because of the tragedy that Armenians experienced. But he said we should not let painful memories take over our hearts. Pope Francis also said he looks forward to being able to pray together with Armenians and share in their friendship. Now, that trip is already underway now, and we'll have details later on in the program. And finally, World Youth Day is less than 1 month away, and here is the latest update from World Youth Day organizers.
Szczepański Square was once home to St. Stephen's Church from the 13th century, as well as the plaza being a marketplace. Today, it is one of the most scenic spots of the city, holding cafes, bars, stores, an art museum, as well as the oldest theater in the city. During World Youth Day events, it'll play host to a number of concerts and adorations, as well as individual testimonies and witness accounts. During the Youth Festival, there will be around 8 stages set up just within the limits of the old city, with the main stage located in Krakow's main square. Pilgrims at Szczepanski Square will have the opportunity to meet performers from across the globe. From Colombia and Brazil to France and Ukraine, they will get to experience the cultures from around the world.
Coming up, I had a chance to speak to Carl Heitu of the Catholic Near East Welfare Association. He just returned from the Vatican, where church agencies that help Eastern churches gathered for their annual assembly. And he is going to give us an update on the current situations that his organization and the Vatican are looking at. That's coming right up next. So Carl, you just came back from the Rocco meeting at the Vatican. For viewers who are not familiar with that, who don't remember our last conversations about Rocco, explain what that is.
Well, you have to understand that in Rome, it's like a government. There's different departments. And one of the departments is called the Congregation of Eastern Churches. And so all the Eastern churches, the 23 of them that exist worldwide, Catholic ones, are kind of represented, if you want, or in Rome with that congregation. So the Pope names a prefect, and there's all those workers working. Even there's some priests from all over the world, from Canada, US, that work there on different desks, the Indian desk, the Ethiopian desk, the Ukrainian desk, and so on. And so in order to facilitate the workings of the Eastern Catholic churches, the Rocco has been called by the congregation for organizations that do have a program working with the Eastern Catholic churches. And so about 24 of them, mainly from Europe, are present at that Rocco meeting, and myself from Canada and Monsignor Kozar from New York office, the Kenewa International office, are representing Kenewa there as well. Yes.
Great. So Eastern churches, that's a huge umbrella and many different areas where there are issues to focus on. I think the one at the forefront of everyone's mind is the Middle East.
Yes. The Middle East has been the forefront of the Rocco for the last 5 years. Right. Because, of course, the tragedy, the human tragedy on people, 4 million refugees, almost another 7-8 million displaced within the country. Just that alone is very destructive, with the pain that people have to endure, as you can imagine. But also, we forget sometimes that they are the churches. You know, St. Paul became Paul at Damascus.
Right.
And so this is also a very important place for Christians. I mean, 2 million Christians live in Syria. That was up to 5 years ago. Now it's about 1.3 million, because those Christians are now more and more in the last year being victim because of their faith, which is a new phenomenon in Syria. So, of course, the Rocco, with the agencies, we would exchange information, data, we would listen to from bishops. In this case, we heard from the nuncio to Syria, who came talk to us about the state of the church right now in Syria. So, and of course, there's the nuncio to Iraq that was there. As you know, the Iraqis have gone through hell in the last 13 years, since 2003, and there were 1.5 million Christians in Iraq. Now, some say maybe 250, 300,000 left in Iraq. Half of them displaced in the country. So the great tragedy on all people, but on Christians particularly, because of their faith as well. So the Rocco allows us to exchange, to know better about what's going on, but also to turn into concrete action to support not only the Christians, but through Christians' organization to reach out to people in need, whether they're Christians or not as well.
Right. What are some of the developments that have happened over the last year in that region?
What we saw, and I think in Canada people will remember, we had the matching program with the federal government that was very successful. Some say not as successful as we would have liked, but it was. And that has raised awareness, whether it's Development in Peace, whether it's Kenewa, whether it's H Church in Need, the three organizations that were mentioned by the Bishops' Conference of Canada to do this campaign. We had great success in our campaign, that's for sure, raising over 3.5, almost $4 million, just the three of us together. So that was quite a success. Well, we were told at that meeting in 2005 that by Corunum, 2015, sorry, that $150 million were raised worldwide by the Catholic Church alone to help over 3 million people in Syria and Iraq in 2015. This is when we talk about the negative impact of the war, we also see the positive impact. And what the Pope is talking about mercy, and how people can act as merciful through organization like the CNEWA, is to reach out to people that are going through hardship, so at least they can live in dignity, they can have the basic necessities. So in that sense, I would say that the state of affairs is still terrible, but the kind of so-called peace treaty that's happening now allows many organizations, Catholic organizations, to reach out to more people that are suffering of famine in many cities right now.
And we've heard a lot about that, about problems with aid getting through and whatnot. So I'm sure that's something that...
But that's what the nuncio told us about, that if the peace could hold, so people can have food and medicine. This is what people are praying for, at least that the peace will hold for a few months, so people can have access to food. That's very, very the basic at this moment.
And that's a certainly devastating situation, but there are others as well. Ukraine is one, and it's one that's fallen from public awareness, unfortunately, but there's still problems there. There's still people in need. Tell us about that.
Yes, unfortunately, of course, the magnitude of the Syrian crisis is on the news every day. Then we forget to say that there's war and conflict and people dying each day in eastern Ukraine. And the pro-Russian forces that are armed by Russia, that are really pushing out people that are not loyal to the pro-Russian forces. Ironically enough, Russia said we're there to help the pro-Russian speaking Ukrainians. But who are the victims of this whole thing are actually the pro-Russian Ukrainians. They're the ones that are the displaced. Over 2 million displaced people and refugees, according to the UN, that have left eastern Ukraine in the last 2 years alone. This is like a burden on Ukrainian, and the economy of Ukraine is in shambles. Unemployment is on the rise, the dollar devaluation is terrible, the economy is falling apart. People that were hungry, that were not hungry just a year ago are now struggling to get food. They have to choose between medicine and food. They have to choose between going to school or not, or how many kids will go to school.
Right.
There's a lot of decisions that are taking place like this in Ukraine right now because of this situation. And many believe it is created artificially by Russia to keep Ukraine unstable so that it won't become a threat to Russia. Yeah.
Well, and what you're describing really sounds like going back not just decades, but centuries.
Yes, Ukraine has been, unfortunately, between the West and the East. And the East is Russia or the Soviets. And for Ukrainians, it's always been very difficult to have their own country. So in the history of 1,000 years, it's only now that Ukrainians have the real potential to develop a real country. And now they're being affected by Russia that doesn't see it eye to eye. As long as Ukraine play the game of Russia, things will be fine for Russians.
Right.
Right? So this is the situation now. So here again, the aid agencies are doing a lot over there. I mean, just talking with the Caritas Ukraine, over last year, 15 million euros. So in Canadian dollar, that would be almost 20 million, just to help the displaced. So this is a great program that's helping. And Kenya was also helping in its own way the displaced in Kiev and Lviv and other parts as well.
Right. Yeah. And then India is an area that we don't often think about at all. It is part of the Eastern churches, but we're not aware as much of the situation for Christians there.
Well, you know, we hear about India more about developing country, right?
Yes.
Like Brazil and China and others, the emerging countries. And it is true. India is an emerging country, but you know, you have 1 billion people living there.
Right.
There are still people, and hundreds of thousands, if not many millions, live still in a jungle, no electricity, no water, and live in huts. You would say, come on, it makes no sense, but it is true. People live like it was 1,000 years ago in many parts of India. And who's there to reach out to them is the church, the Catholic Church, in particular the Syro-Malankara Church and the Syro-Malabar Church.
Okay.
And that's the one we work with. And so, of course, the two bishops from the jungle areas came to talk to us about their mission. I mean, talking about the way to basically go to the lowest of the lowest, the Dali, the people in the society of India that cannot own anything because this is the way it is for thousands of years.
And this is according to the caste system.
According to caste system, which is illegal according to Indian, but in the daily lives it's not.
Ah.
And so the faith and the church is going there to basically reach out to those people, to bring about their dignity. You can own your own home.
Right.
You can have a little business. You can harvest your land. You can sell and have earnings. You can send your kids to school and they can know how to write. They can bargain. They can do. This is what it is to be a human being. And this is what God wants for you. So it's a form of evangelization. And some of them see something beautiful in the church because for the first time of their life, they are respected for who they are. Right. And they join, slowly but surely, the church. And they become new members, people that discover Jesus in the 21st century, wanting to develop a community that will be based on forgiveness, compassion, caring. It is a beautiful program. Unfortunately, in India, you have the radicals, Hindu, and they're watching. It's why here I cannot even tell you which jungle, which part of India, because I would put in danger the life of women missionaries, religious men missionaries, bishops, people that are doing extraordinary work. And that too, this is the kind of work Kenewa supports. And the 24 agencies that were there were invited, of course, to support the good work that is being done there. I mean, reaching out to the sick, the elderly, the handicapped, the marginalized. It's a very powerful message. Yeah.
So for Kenewa now, moving forward out of this, what is the focus going to be over the next few months?
Ethiopia is going through a major drought. When there's no rain for over a year in some region of Ethiopia and other parts of Horn of Africa, but for us mainly in Ethiopia, we've received many calls of distress from the Church of Ethiopia, where people, I mean, the cattle are dying, the crops are not growing, and basically people are struggling for food. This is a real crisis, and I don't understand why, but it barely made it to the news, and it should, because over 10 million people are affected by this crisis in Ethiopia alone. That's not counting the other countries around, like Eritrea, like Somalia, and other parts. Things are pretty bad over there. And so our agency is responding to that, and we will launch a campaign in August.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for making time for us today.
It's a pleasure.
Time to take a look now at what Pope Francis has been doing this week. So let's start with last Friday. Pope Francis kept his promise for the Jubilee year, and he went to visit a group of people who don't usually get visitors. Actually, two groups. He went to 2 houses for priests. So the first house has 8 diocesan priests from different parts of Italy, and they all have different issues or illnesses that they are dealing with. At this house, they are accompanied by a permanent deacon who is actually a former Italian Air Force colonel and now specialized in psychology. The Pope met with them in their chapel and spent some time getting to know them and praying with them. And from there, he went on to a home for elderly priests from the Diocese of Rome. Again, he spent time greeting each one and thanking them for their ministry. On Monday, the Pope met with cardinals in Rome in an ordinary public consistory. He set the date for the canonization of 5 blesseds: Guillaume Leclerc, Manuel Gonzalez Garcia, Lodovico Pavoni, Alfonso Maria Fusco, and Elizabeth of the Holy Trinity. They will all be recognized as saints on October 16th. Now, at the same consistory, Pope Francis raised 4 cardinals to the rank of cardinal priest. So there are 3 ranks of cardinals: cardinal deacon, cardinal priest, and cardinal bishop. When a member of the Roman Curia is made a cardinal, he is usually given the rank cardinal deacon. After 10 years of service, he can then be raised to the rank of cardinal priest. Today, those differences in rank are purely ceremonial. Now, the 4 new cardinal priests are Cardinals William Leveda, Frank Rodet, Andrea Cordero de Montezemolo, and Cardinal Albert Van Hoy. And Wednesday, of course, was the general audience. Now, Pope Francis had some very pointed words on how Christians should treat refugees. and Catholic News Service has details.
Quante volte noi incontriamo un povero che ci viene incontro. Possiamo essere anche generosi, possiamo avere compassione, però di solito non lo tocchiamo. Gli offriamo la moneta, ma evitiamo di toccare la mano, la buttiamo lì. E dimentichiamo che quello è il corpo di Cristo. Gesù ci insegna a non avere timore di toccare il povero e l'escluso, perché Lui è in essi. Toccare il povero può purificarci dall'ipocrisia e renderci inquieti per la sua condizione. Toccare gli esclusi. Oggi mi accompagnano qui questi ragazzi. Tanti pensano di loro che è meglio che fossero rimaste nella sua terra, ma lì soffrivano tanto, sono i nostri rifugiati. Ma tanti li considerano esclusi. Per favore, sono i nostri fratelli. Il cristiano esclude nessuno, dà posto a tutti. Lascia venire tutti.
On Friday, Pope Francis departed for his weekend visit to Armenia. Upon arrival, he met with President Sirs Sargsyan and the diplomatic corps. And on Saturday, he will visit the Armenian Genocide Memorial. Then he will celebrate Mass in a nearby public square and wrap up the day taking part in an ecumenical meeting and prayer for peace. The Pope's visit concludes on Sunday. Instead of celebrating Mass, he will actually attend an Armenian Apostolic Divine Liturgy and then visit the Corvirap Monastery by the Turkish border before returning to Rome. Of course, Salt and Light has full coverage of this weekend's events. Check out our website for full broadcast details. And let's take a look now at the resignations and nominations that happened this week. Well, in Canada, Basilian Father Robert Kaysen has been named the newest auxiliary bishop for Toronto. He has been serving as pastor at an inner-city parish in Edmonton and comes with extensive pastoral and teaching experience. There is no word yet on when or where his ordination will actually take place, because Toronto's cathedral is still under renovation. Well, that's all for this edition of Vatican Connections. Join us again next time for more. But until then, you can follow us on Twitter, check our blog for updates, or watch us on Rocco TV on demand. From everyone here, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.